Peter Sesselmann, and today we're looking at an old vintage microphone. It's a Olson M-102. It's a classic vintage looking microphone. I bought this because I've been doing some jazz gigs and stuff like that, and I thought we wanted a microphone that suits the genre. And so I came across this on eBay. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't expensive either, considering that it doesn't actually work. So the plug was missing. There's a bit of cables hanging out. So I did try and plug it in, and the sound was somewhat disappointing. That's okay. I never intended to use it with the existing microphone insert anyway. I have a collection of other little microphone heads here that I'm planning on putting inside. But it was interesting to see if it actually did make a sound and what kind of sound it made. What do you call the sound? Kind of metallic-y. Sounded a bit like the old-fashioned rotary dial telephones. I don't know if you've ever had one of those open. They have like a little metal diaphragm disc that makes the sound. Sounds like a bit of a tin can with a string attached to it. That's what they sound like. Not a big selling point, unless of course that's the sound that you're after, which is okay too. But I'm looking for a more of a straight down the middle vocal type sound, which you would get out of a dynamic microphone. I am considering putting a condenser mic in there as well. I've got some tiny little electret condenser mics. It has a switch on it here, and I'm thinking it might be handy to be able to switch between condenser and dynamic. So because we sometimes do like a radio show thing where the actors read the play on stage. I actually sit up the back, play a bit of guitar and do sound effects. But that's where you stand a little bit further away and they're talking to the microphone, and it's not music, so it doesn't have to be that loud, so a condenser microphone might pick that up better. Next step is to pop it open, I suppose, and see what kind of mysteries are hiding inside. So let's have a look. Okay, so cradle comes off. Let's undo the screws here. There's some rubber bushings there. So that comes off like that. So now we're left with this. There's a screw missing here, so I'll have to find a replacement for that. I'll take this screw out here. Comes the cage off. So that's two halves like that. There would have been some foam or some pop material in there, I'm thinking. I got some, so I'll replace that. And here we got the microphones. Have a look at that. They're kind of two microphones facing each other, and it looks like some kind of metal diaphragms here. So it's no wonder it sounded a little bit like an old telephone. It's kind of very similar to what they would have made an old telephone with. So there you go. These microphones just kind of sit in a bit of a metal cage like that. I can pull those out like that, you can see them here. So it's a bit difficult to see inside there, but yeah, definitely looks like a metal diaphragm. It'd be interesting to pop one of these open and see what kind of what they're using here. If it's a, I don't think it's a magnetic. I can't feel any magnetism, so I'm assuming they're condensers. I actually got sound out of these by just plugging them in through a normal input, no phantom power, no nothing. I reckon this probably would sound better with phantom power. Maybe while I have them out, I'll try them again, applying some phantom power to them and see what response. Maybe they do sound fantastic when wired correctly. But anyway, if not, as I said, I'm planning to put a dynamic capsule in there, and possibly a couple of electrodes. Maybe I'll leave this in. We'll see. So next step is to desolder it all and disconnect it all, I suppose. These bracket things, they screw in there. There's nothing really else there. That's it. If you look inside, there's a switch and there's the cable. The cable I have to replace. It is so old that it just crumbles in your fingers. So there's nothing, not worth worrying about really. Probably fully functional. I've had a bit of a clean up. I've cleaned up these old switches before, and they come up pretty good. They're probably better made than a lot of switches today, I'm sorry to say. Okay, so that's the switch desoldered. Still needs a bit of a clean, but it's a mess there. Yucky. So I'm really tempted to open this up. It's only got 4 little tabs on it here. I'm just going to have a bit of a peek inside. Trying to work out what's actually going on here. So this Olson character, oh here we go, some kind of metal. So you can see there, that's a metal diaphragm. Dude. As it picks up vibration. So this Olson that this is branded with, I'm not sure if it is an original or a budget version or what it is, but he is, from what I understand, he invented ribbon microphones. Looks like a piece of alfoil really. Let's plug it in and see what it sounds like. Okay, so plugged in with phantom power, didn't really make any sound at all. So curiosity is getting the better of me. I'm going to cut this thing open. Since I have very little plans of actually using it as a microphone anyway. I'm just going to see what's going on inside here. So there's the alfoil there. This is very interesting. You can see here, looks like a little circuit board thing almost. It's got a little metal bridge, and from what I can tell, that is just aluminium foil. I don't know if it has any special coating on it or anything like that. I don't really know what's going on inside this little piece here, if it's just simply a connector to the corners. So it's sitting on these 2 little pads here, which I'm thinking are probably just spacers, yeah. So it's just got a bit of glue there holding them in place. So you can see here, let's see what that is. Now, what is going on here? So I'm thinking this is some basic
attempt at a condenser mic or capacitor mic. However, the capacitor has two plates. I don't know where the second plate is on this. It looks like the aluminium foil is electrically connected to the chassis, but it may not be. There could be a shim in between, and that's then connected. So basically what happens is, as this vibrates, the small capacitor changes in the whole unit. I wonder if we can measure that. Really know what this little piece is all about. Oh, hang on, there's something inside here. Some kind of magnification, some kind of graphite dust. Need to do some research on this just to find out what this actually is. But I know the old telephones that we spoke about before, they had some kind of graphite dust in a chamber. So let me move this back. So the old telephones, they had some kind of membrane and some graphite dust that, when it vibrated, it altered the resistance, I think, in a way, a bit like a potentiometer, you know, like it's when you turn the dial, the resistance goes up and down, and that caused the sound signal to be translated then as a change in resistance, which causes the electricity to read it as a wave, a sound wave. Similar thing with the capacitor mics. Apply a voltage over them, and as they move, it changes the capacitance, which also creates a sound wave as a result of that. It's interesting. I don't really know exactly what this is. I'll do a bit of research, and if I can find something interesting, I'll let you know. But as I said, I'm not going to be using that anyway. So it's really just a bit of a sideline. Look up exactly how they work. Now you may wonder, what's the difference between an instrument mic and a vocal microphone? So if you look at the Shure, for instance, the 58 versus the SM58 versus SM57, what is the actual difference between the two microphones? Well, internally they are the same. It's exactly the same capsule, microphone capsule. What's different is that the vocal mic has a ball on it with a little bit more pop filtering, so when you blow into the microphone, you don't get this big boomy puff coming out of the speaker. You don't really need that on instrument mics. So the 57 doesn't have that. It's got a smaller cap on it and just a dust cap type of thing, because it's unlikely that your instrument will be blowing into the microphone. So that's really the only difference. So I could easily use this instrument mic inside here. Just make sure I put a layer of a bit of foam or something very light that stops. I mean, the mesh will go to a certain extent, stop the popping. But as I said, I do have some thin foam and fabric. It's actually some speaker foam, but I think that would work quite nicely. That I can put inside here, and then that'll, for all intentional purposes, turn that microphone into a vocal mic. So we'll do that next. So in order to mount the little microphone, and I'm tempted to take the dust cap off because I'm making a new dust cap further out, so there's not too many obstacles in the way for the sound. In order to mount that at that level, I'm going to make a little plastic C that fits inside there, that I'm going to screw the microphone into. This has little metal prongs here that I could squeeze around the little plastic C and hold it in place. So I got some polypropylene plastic here. Why polypropylene? Well, it's virtually indestructible, so that's one good thing. And I'm just going to bend it out of that. Just using some shears. About there. I'm going to make it a little thicker in the middle here, because that's where the screw will go through. So it fits inside the clamp there. I'm just going to do that with the heat gun. Let me move the camera around here. First, let's have a look here.
Shaping a bit with a good old Dremel. But basically you can see the idea here, how that's going to sit inside there. And I'm going to drill a small hole through here. And the microphone actually has a little, you can see that's a little screw hole in the back there. That'll just screw and sit like that. Then it's really this question of sorting the cables up, and it'll be a functioning mic. But I was also intending to put some electrodes in there, some condenser mics for slightly longer throw. So we have 3 people talking into the one microphone, for instance. It'll have slightly more depth to it. That of course will be no good for louder gigs because it'll feed back like nobody's business. But for as I said, like speakeasies where people are mainly just talking and it's just to amplify the voice a little bit, it'll probably be okay. So that's the plan at the moment. That I may do a similar thing on the second row here, but with the 2 condensers on it. So we'll get back to that. So this miniature condenser mics or electrode mics or whatever they're called, which are used in pretty much everything these days. They you can get these little rubber caps that they squeeze into perfectly, and that's probably the best way to mount them. So I found that rubber sticks to steel incredibly well with super glue. So I bent this steel shape and I flattened with a hammer. I flattened the ends a little bit and bent them up. Maybe you can see that. And I'm just cleaning that a little bit before gluing. So it's going in here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue those onto there with a bit of super glue, and that's going to hold those little microphones. This way next to nothing, and the wires are really thin, so that's going to hold those beautifully. Now I have a little drop where I want the microphone to sit. Let's hold that there until it takes like that. That'll continue to set. Another little drop. Yeah, so although again I've done a little bit of research online, as you do. Ask Google, you know, and this microphone inserts that were in the old Olson mic, there were carbon mics, or sometimes called graphite mics. The way they work is they have a small chamber of graphite carbon dust. Then they have a metal type membrane that's attached to that, and then when you speak into it, it picks up sound. The carbon which is in that little chamber compresses a little bit, which increases or decreases the resistance. So imagine a bit like a potentiometer, I suppose. If the sound could turn it up and down at the speed of the sound waves, you will get varying resistance. So it's like a voice-activated variable resistor. So then when you put a voltage to it, I think this was sometimes used without amplifiers. You could just basically put a DC voltage through them, and
hook it up to a speaker or headphones or something like that, and then whatever sound goes into them basically comes out of the speaker or the headphone straight through, because this will then vary the amount of voltage going through by the vibration. So quite a clever little gizmo. They're still used in certain applications where you know, like, say for argument's sake, after a nuclear bomb or something like that, this will still work, whereas some other types of microphone may not work necessarily, or amplifiers may not work. So this is kind of inherent a way of sending a sound signal long distances without any electronics. It's electrics but no electronics. So, but having said that, the sound quality that you get out of this is actually quite poor. So they're not really great for musical type applications. This old Olson microphone I've got here was never really intended for recording or performing audio, as in music. It was for audio, but mainly for things like ham radio or radio broadcasting or things like that. So doesn't really matter. I'm replacing the inside anyway. I'm mainly interested in the look of it. I like the look of the actual microphone, specifically for some performances we have coming up. So as you can see here now, I've made and installed the two new little brackets that are going to hold the mics. The two rubber grommets, or whatever you want to call them, that holds the electret condenser mics are installed there, nice and securely. The top one here that's going to hold the dynamic mic still needs to be clamped in place, but that's looking pretty good in there as well. So let's get on with that, I suppose. So what I might do to help those seat a bit better, I'm going to heat them with the soldering iron and let them melt a little bit into the plastic. So I have some acoustic material. I'll show you. You can see this material here. It's a triple layer. It's got a fine mesh, then it's got a little bit of fine, very, very fine foam, and then it's got a bit of fabric at the back. And it's actually a speaker cloth for very high quality speakers. So I'm going to make from that, I'm going to make a little insert that will go inside the microphone and work as a pop filter. These ones are pretty steady. So the electret grommets, they're basically the microphone that slips in from the back. Let's see. You can see it there, and just pushes into place like that, and the elements then exposed through the little hole there. So what I need to do now is solder some wires on this, so I can then hook them up to this switch. I still need to service this switch a little bit. So it's a double pole, double throw. Basically, center to outside when the switch is to that side, two of them, and center to the other side when the switch is that way. So I can then wire up my two microphones and have one side to be one microphone only and the other side to be the other microphone only. I don't think there's any situation where I want them both to be on at the same time, so I'm not. So I got the dynamic head here. I'm just going to solder the wires on now. So one lead on each side here. One side, turn it over. The other side. be installed. So I just need the screw. You can see now how that microphone is suspended in the top there. So the main difference between an electret and a large diaphragm, or what do you want to call them, permanent capacitance. They're both capacitor microphones. Potentially have similar sounds. I'm not going to say that these two little microphones have as good a sound as a top-of-the-line recording mic, but they are exceptionally good for what they are. And the main difference between a big diaphragm recording mic and this is that these don't need much more than a few volts, whereas the larger ones, they need upwards of 40 volts, for sometimes 60 to 70 volts to run. That's why these are used a lot in mobile devices and portable recording units and stuff like that, because they can get away with 6 volts or something like that. And the sound is exceptionally good, so perfectly fine for what I'm using it for here. So I'm just going to solder those. I'm just going to wire them together, piggyback them. Now you can see what's positive and negative here, because the negative has little leads that go off to the chassis. Looks alright. And I can now install them by simply poking them through the back, really. So that goes in there. That's in there. This one goes in there. And we have the two active wires coming down here. So now you can see the microphone assembly in there. We have the dynamic up the top there for some live vocal work, and the electrodes on the bottom here for more further back recording or speech, and then the switch will go in there to switch between them. Okay, so I'm gonna cut up a little dust cap and pop filter to go inside the microphone. And as I said, I have this fabric, which is it's actually a speaker fabric. It's a triple layer. It's got some foam in the middle. It's got a bit of gauze type material on the back, and some expanded gauze on the front, I suppose, to make it look pretty. So I wanted to fit inside this little metal cage that's on the microphone, and I just happen to have this little thing of wood filler here, which is pretty much the size of what I want. So I'm going to use that as my template to cut this up with. So first I'm just rough cutting it. I'm sorry if the air conditioner is really loud in the background, but there's 43 degrees here today, so I can't really do it without it. To wrap around to there. To here. That. Go down inside the base a little bit, I suppose. Actually, no, it won't, so I can trim that later. And then I want it to be kind of round on top, so let me see if I can fold this about 4 times. About like that. And then I'm going to cut a pleat like that. So we end up with this. Okay. Then we'll glue this together best way we can, like that, and then join this up on top, and we get like a little dust cap. It's a little dust cap. May not be the most beautiful thing in the world, but after all it's going to be inside this. There you go. So, just soldering the plug on here. So one is ground. The previous cable had a little knot in it. I'm going to do the same thing. It stops it tugging out of there. Strip the end. You're now going to wire this into place. Snip this length and strip the ends. To the side here. And I'm also going to put a resistor on here because the phantom power, I need to knock the voltage back across the electrode, because phantom power is 48 volts and an electrode really only needs about between 6 and 9. So snip off the exits. So first of all I'm wiring the input. No, sorry, I'm wiring the output. So that'll be the two center parts of the switch here. Now the markings on the old mark here is S and P. Now, neither of those really make a lot of sense for the two marks I have in there, so I'm just going to wire them into the switch and then just try and remember which is which, or maybe put a little sticker on or something like that. Now at this point it would be a good idea to test it and see if it works. But I wanna put it together, so let's put it together and then we'll see if it works. So I have my little cap here, which is way too long. I have to cut that off a little bit. So I'm taking it to about there. Okay, so a little hat. Take our screws out of the side here. Okay, so there's our little cap in place. Doesn't look too bad, I reckon. I have to find the screw holes here to go through. So we need to try and line up these holes now. And we're home. Like this. Methinks. Actually, I'm going to put that the other way. I'm going to put it this way. through. Tighten that up. Da-da-da. That goes in here. Oh, it's very nice. And then I'm going to... I thought I was going to do about that. I'm going to put the cable through. It's got a little cable shoe here. Okay, so let's test this thing out. Plug it in. So it's now set to condenser. So I'm just going through a little testing speaker setup here.
1 2 1 2 1 2 3.
It's not bad.
1 2 3. Boom 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 boom. Yeah, that sounds alright. Sounds alright. Sounds alright. Now let's try the electrics. So I'll turn it down.
Switch it across.
Let's see if we get any sound there. Oh yeah, there we go. But these are of course much more prone to feedback, but also work from further away. So for the radio show, it was a cold and rainy night. So that kind of, you can stand back here and talk into it and then pick it up. So look, I'm really happy with this. It's kind of cool. So I got it on eBay. It wasn't super cheap, but also wasn't super expensive. I think I paid about $100 for it. And it was, for all intentional purposes, broken. For all intentional purposes, it was broken.
And I think it looks really cool. Have a look here. I mean, that's one cool looking microphone. From the audience point of view, like that. So, there you have it. That's my little video on how to take an old antique microphone and put new electronics in it, electric/electronics, there's nothing really fancy going on in there, and turn it into a functioning microphone. I wouldn't use it to record with or anything like that, like it's not a top of the line microphone, but it looks really funky, and the sound is perfectly good enough for most small club performances and stuff like that. So that's it from me. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. As I said before, my name is Sesselmann. You can check out the products that I make and sell on peterman.com.au. I do sell microphones, not antique ones like this, but I do sell microphones for drums and instruments and things like that, and guitar pickups and stomp boxes to accompany yourself with. So check that out, and I'll catch you there. Cheers.